Por tu seguridad y la de todos, la Secretaría de Cultura y el Bosque de Chapultepec te invitan a colaborar con las siguientes medidas en caso de emergencia. Identifica las rutas de evacuación y las salidas de emergencia de este espacio. Mantén los accesos y rutas de evacuación despejados. Si estás acompañado previamente, coordina un punto de encuentro. Este es un recinto libre de basura. Te agradecemos lleves contigo los desechos que generes. Al dirigirse a las rutas de evacuación, mantén la calma. Recuerda, no correr, no empujar, no gritar. Ayuda a ancianos, niños y mujeres embarazadas. Aléjate de lugares que representen algún riesgo para ti o los tuyos. Coopera con los encargados de seguridad. Es de suma importancia estar atento a las indicaciones de los organizadores de este evento. Su colaboración y conservar siempre la calma será muy importante para su seguridad. La Secretaría de Cultura y el Bosque de Chapultepec agradece tu visita. Al permanecer en este espacio, autorizo a la Secretaría de Cultura, a través del Complejo Cultural Los Pinos y Bosque de Chapultepec, para que utilice mi imagen en fotografías o videos, que serán utilizados sin fines de lucro para difundir las actividades en redes sociales y medios de comunicación. En caso de no autorizarlo, acercarse a las personas organizadoras para dar aviso. Lo anterior con fundamento en los acuerdos y lineamientos de transparencia, acceso a la información pública y protección de datos personales. Agradecemos tu visita y recuerda seguir las redes de Los Pinos.
On commence, ok. Excellence, s'il vous plaît.
Excellencies, if you can kindly sit down. This is the end of the day. I know it's hard, but please sit down as soon as possible.
Excellences, Mesdames
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to moderate this session with my dear colleagues to talk about culture, since we're here united on UNESCO's initiative for Mondiacult. And as we said, it's been 40 years since this movement for culture has been active. And personally, I am very happy to be part of it and to be able to moderate. I'd like to express on behalf of Audrey Azoulay and Ernesto Toni and the other UNESCO's team members, thank Mexico for inviting us and for receiving us and for continuing with the tradition of Mondiacult. With my colleague, Vice President Arnaud Harafa, we're representing as well the Excellency, Excellent Melk. In order to open this session, which is Culture for Sustainable Development, it's important to recall that sustainable development cannot be quantified by performance indicators. The real indicator is the human being and what can come up from experiencing the right to culture, right to copyright, right to equality, a bundle of rights defended by UNESCO and CCLP-SLM. So we're together here today to work on this noble cause, which is culture, and promote our societies, but also to promote certain crucial values for humankind and our existence. This is why the numbers that were already shared by UNESCO are very important in this context regarding the quantification known by the cultural sector, as well as the creative and cultural initiatives when it comes to wealth, revenue, employment, protected heritage sites, as well as countries and participation, women's participation on behalf of culture. It's very important to notice that there are millions of jobs in the cultural sector that reminds us the importance of culture, as well as for sustainable tourism, but it's also important to recall what's lacking as a right. We need to use this momentum of international fora, countries, and I think this is what brings us together, as well as Cisco. This is why my colleagues will take the floor, and they will all have the opportunity to present their commitment, their reality, and the objectives that they represent. I'd like to start by Andrzej Kass, Deputy Minister of Culture. You have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to participate with you in Mondiacult. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Mexican authorities for hosting such an important meeting and UNESCO for organizing it. I would like to emphasize this. The day after my country, Czech Republic, celebrated Czech Statehood Day. We are aware from history that freedom in all its forms is not and cannot be taken for granted. It must be protected and fought for. We welcome the unequivocal condemnation of the Russian aggression against the Ukraine at the special session of the Executive Board in March this year and call for principled action against the Russian aggressor in all areas of UNESCO competence, including the unresolved issue of the chairmanship of the World Heritage Committee in the year that marks the 50th anniversary on the convention. Since the Russian aggressor is trampling upon all the principles on which UNESCO was founded. It is targeting culture infrastructure, it is attacking the soul and the identity of the nation whose history it wants to erase. This is totally unacceptable, and in addition to words, we must be able, as a democratic world, to respond forcefully. One of the war atrocities is that children cannot be educated and develop their creative potential. Speaking about creative potential, I perceive the low awareness of the power that lies in arts and education as a big challenge. I would like to take this opportunity to share the best practice of our country, namely the particular experience of arts education. Our country has a unique structure of primary art schools which are established by the Education Act and provide basic education in several artistic disciplines: music, dance, visual arts, literary, dramatic, and audiovisuals. I consider it very important that they have their own legal framework and their own educational plans. More than over 250,000 pupils are enrolled in more than 500 art schools and are looked after by 13,000 pedagogues who are often also professionals in their artistic field. Interest in this type of education continues to grow, and it is affordable and therefore accessible very easily. Primary art schools enable the majority of talented individuals to be educated and to be professionally prepared for non-professional artistic activity or for study at secondary and higher art or pedagogical schools and conservatories. But even children who do not continue their artistic education benefit from the influence of the arts of their personalities, which shapes their moral qualities and values. Several Czech primary art schools are active in the UNESCO-associated school network, and almost every primary art school also has a partner school abroad, with which it organizes joint culture events and exchange experience. Children are thus open up to a variety of culture expression very early on. The second segment I would like to highlight here is the development of educational activities in the field of cultural heritage as a part of effective care of cultural heritage is raising awareness of its values. The state-founded organizations established by Ministry of Culture are characterized by a number of activities in this area, which are major contribution to informal as well as formal education in the Czech Republic. In this manner, the Ministry of Culture also actively cooperates with the Ministry of Education in the number of areas and also supports adequate project finally. This list of various education activities would be too long, but the Czech Republic is ready to share with you its experience in their area at any time. The fact that the interaction between culture and education is important for development of culture was a paradigm already mentioned in the first World Culture Conference in 1982. Hopefully, the concrete examples of good practice in the Czech Republic will be an inspiration for other countries. Thank you for your attention.
Merci, merci, Excellence.
So much, Your Excellency. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Yanis Toumasis, Deputy Minister of Culture of Cyprus.
Dear colleagues, allow me also to thank UNESCO and the government of Mexico for convening this milestone event with such warmth and hospitality. The world is currently facing a multitude of rapid changes, including social, climatic, political, health, and economic challenges. In the shadow of the above, new ways of thinking and innovative approaches are required. Culture and the creative industries are at the heart of innovation. As Leopold Senghor once said, culture is the alpha and omega of any sound development policy. Today, development can no longer be considered as an economic project. Instead, social, cultural, emotional, and cognitive aspects of development are widely acknowledged. In such a reflection, our efforts should aim at widening development pathways and highlighting the importance of human-centered development. Cultural processes do not occur in a vacuum. They are instead the culmination of cultural, social, historical, and economic fabrics. Mainstreaming culture into other policy areas and developing multi-layered integrated strategies involving all governance levels can lead to holistic approaches in cultural governance. In this increasingly interconnected context, the notion of creative economy gains greater importance in the discourse of culture and development, and it is thus essential to refer to the capabilities approach. It is important also to clarify that economic income and average growth is not by any means the sole indicator of development. Human development encompasses historical and cultural contingencies and can provide a valid framework for cultural policy action. Hence, development should not be regarded as a single frame notion, but instead as a transformational and dynamic force which should manifest the diversity of all inherent capabilities. Culture is undoubtedly a global public good. Culture and creativity are transformational, and the links and interconnection with the education field should be sought. Thus, we should envision an inclusive society that honors the human capacity for creativity and values the education of underprivileged and underrepresented people, especially the younger generations that are the hope for a different and better future, and help them acquire the creative, entrepreneurial, managerial, and intercultural competencies required. Still, we should continue to seek for a stronger concept of citizenship by making people actively engaged and propagate equal sharing by making cultural commons accessible to larger groups of people. We should also aim to safeguard the heritage and the surrounding environment given the effects of climate change. The use of knowledge, of new technologies can help significantly. We could indeed envisage our common future using mastered knowledge from our common past. We can create a future where AI, the artificial intelligence, coexists and co-creates with another AI, the ancestral intelligence, the accumulated knowledge of mankind since time immemorial. Artificial intelligence is the ability of machines to act like humans. On the other hand, ancestral intelligence is what humans have commonly achieved in the long course of their earthly existence. A creative synergy between the two could be seminal for a successful future of humanity, and I believe these are UNESCO values. In closing, I would like to express the urgent need to join forces in a concerted effort towards achieving the realization of the long-awaited vision to put culture at the heart of sustainable and inclusive development in the post-2030 agenda. Thank you.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, the Minister, His Excellency, Her Excellency, Mr. Kalinu, from the Secretary of Culture from Egypt, will intervene by video. I give her the floor. Mesdames et Messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, salutations from Egypt. Egypt has a unique heritage in the history of humanity. Its ancient and medieval pharaonic, Ptolemaic, and Coptic and Islamic history testifies to this uniqueness. And at every stage of Egyptian history, thought, the culture and creativity were strongly present and have always been the spirit of Egyptian civilization. It has always been that kind of spirit. Egypt would have not been developed only with agriculture, industry, or Renaissance without thoughts, culture, and creativity that maintain, support, and enhance it. As a matter of fact, the Egyptian state is very keen to emphasize that culture, arts, literature, and knowledge are inherent rights of every citizen of the territory, equivalent to the right to health care and the right to life. It fulfills its right for the people of Egypt by all possible means and by systems and mechanisms agreed upon and regulated by laws and policies. Ladies and gentlemen, digital transformation is not just a slogan raised by the Egyptian state. Through the Sustainable Development Plan as reflected in Egypt's Vision 2030. Egypt seeks to build a digital Egypt and reach an Egyptian society that deals digitally in all walks of life. And this is done through strengthening the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure, and developing digital services in government agencies to improve e-government. Perhaps the sure proof of the state's interest in this endeavor is the new republic, the fact that the new republic is that the move to the new era will be accompanied by a complete transformation to digital systems instead of traditional systems. In this regard, I would like to review the most important indicators that support the idea of digital transformation in relation to the policies of the Ministry of Culture on one hand and its activities on the other hand. On the policy level, a Digital Culture and Information Infrastructure Development Committee. It has been established at the Supreme Council for Culture, which is affiliated with the cultural policies and is responsible for submitting policy papers related to the digital environment in Egypt. In addition, and worth mentioning that the project pilot, which the Ministry of Culture on one hand is leading, and the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology is leading on the other hand. This project aims to create the first portal for Egyptian digital cultural content, which will bring together under one umbrella the cultural products for 14 sectors and cultural bodies affiliated with the Ministry of Culture. It will make this content available to different groups in society that will open the door to greater interaction by the recipient of the cultural service and consecrate the concept of digital information transformation. As far as activities are concerned, I would like to highlight the Culture in Your Hands initiative launched by the Ministry of Culture during and by the use of digital platforms to broadcast theatrical performances, opera and music performances, as well as book shows. This experience has achieved unprecedented successes as a result of the richness of the content provided and the nature of the conditions imposed by the corona pandemic at that time. It attracted record views both from inside the Arab Republic of Egypt and abroad. With regard to the combination between maintaining live performances and digital communication, while the Ministry of Culture presented this initiative, it was keen on maintaining the balance between online performances and live interaction between the shows, as the latter undoubtedly achieves greater communication and interaction between the cultural product and its recipients. For example, the Ministry of Culture held various live screenings, the most important of which the Cairo International Film Festival, Arab Music Festival, and the Cairo International Book Fair, which was organized twice in 6 months. In the latter, a digital platform has been set up to view, browse, and even order and buy books, with a book delivery service being available to those who request it. In conclusion, the Egyptian Ministry of Culture will continue to strongly support all digital transformation efforts in Egypt, both at the level of implementation in all bodies and sectors of the ministry, and at the level of the ministry's participation and awareness raising campaigns of the role of digital transformation and its importance for sustainable development plans in Egypt.
Merci infiniment. Merci, Excellence. Bienvenue, sauf El-Kenani, ministre de la Culture en Égypte, pour
the Egyptian Ministry of Culture for her intervention and details regarding culture in Egypt. I give the floor now to His Excellency Ilmar, who is Vice Minister of Culture from Indonesia. Please, Your Excellency.
I first like to thank the UNESCO and also the government of Mexico for organizing and hosting this important conference, a conference that could not be more timely. So much has been said about the vital role of culture in achieving sustainable development goals. Many countries, including Indonesia, already have a solid and comprehensive policy framework for this purpose. The exchange of information and experiences through regional and international platforms is frequent, but I see the need for a more systematic increase in efforts. The international community has set 2030 as the deadline for achieving sustainable development goals, but the current state of the world doesn't seem conducive to reaching that time limit. The recently published Human Development Report 2022 reminds us that we are dealing with a new uncertainty complex that, if not addressed, will not only complicate the steps to fulfill these sustainable development goals, but also threaten human existence. What should we do? The report delivers a clear message, I quote, doubling down on human development to unleash the creative and cooperative capacities that are essentially human, end of quote. The question then is, what do we mean by doubling down here? While there are many good initiatives at the national level, and increasing or doubling our investment at that level is of course of utmost importance, there is still room for improvement at the regional and international levels. And this is the main point of my intervention. It is a call to action more than anything else. We have many examples from intangible cultural heritage elements contributing to sustainable development goals, but we would tend to stop at these individual cases and fail to see that various elements are interconnected. UNESCO has recently produced a visualization that draws out the interconnections between intangible cultural heritage elements and sustainable development goals. It's available on the UNESCO website. Here, we can clearly see that the elements are interconnected with the sustainable development goals by crisscrossing lines, forming a circle, giving the impression that intangible cultural heritage elements are a reliable network. And here's my proposal. Let us work together to create that network. If agreed, Indonesia is more than happy to host a conference to discuss this further. We can then follow up this forum with exchange and residency program, which provide opportunities for artists, intellectuals, and community members to learn and develop collaborative projects. The results of these collaborative projects can be presented in mutually agreed international forums in conjunction with the 20th anniversary of the 2003 convention. This cross-border and cross-sectoral work certainly requires adequate institutional and financial support. At the G20 Culture Ministers meeting in Indonesia 2 weeks ago, the ministers agreed to continue discussing the importance of the Global Recovery Fund for Arts and Culture. We have initiated the idea for this fund and developed it in close collaboration with UNESCO, ensuring that this fund, to which both states and non-state actors can contribute voluntarily, does not compete with, but instead complement existing funds under UNESCO's framework. Excellencies, colleagues, let us commit to work towards a consensus and use this opportunity to create a momentum that would lead us to sustainable development goals. Hopefully, on this auspicious occasion, we can strengthen the idea of building a more solid international cooperation framework with words and concrete actions. Thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I give the floor now to Her Excellency Samantha Tanson, Minister of Luxembourg, who will intervene through a video. I'll give her the floor. Mr. President, Excellency, dear colleagues, I do acknowledge the government of Mexico and the UNESCO to put the culture in the very center of the conversation about sustainable development and to underline the importance of sustainable development culture. In this post-2030 scenario, I think it's appropriate to integrate both notions, to speak about human rights and what we own to the planet. The interconnections that culture creates, it's a transversal approach and diversified for international dialogue are more than ever relevant more than ever. I thank the organizer to allow this discussion about sustainable learning, what it means to live all together and to preserve what Earth and our ancestors can transmit to us, which is very precious. This is a value for our society. As a mirror, it makes us to think about our actions and reflect our actions to the planet and to everybody, and to break the barriers that are only exist in our head. I want to underline the importance of culture, arts, and literature in our creations. The UNESCO gives us the framework where we can intervene within the best actions. Culture is defined by our interaction with nature and everyone else, and through the respect towards tradition, creation, and the environment in which we are living. And this constitutes a heritage that we have to share within each other and for our future generations. Let me conclude to quoting Carlos Fuentes. Every culture is born with conflicts, and by isolation, civilizations are dying. Thanks to Mexico, thanks to the UNESCO for giving us this occasion, this opportunity for exchanges and to meet each other. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for reminding us that sustainable development has an important human aspect beyond materiality. The next speaker will be Susina Namutania, Calais, who is Minister of Education, of Art and Culture from Namibia. I give you the floor. Monsieur le
Please, participants, I want to express my gratitude to the government of Mexico and UNESCO for hosting Mondiacult 2022, and I'm pleased with the cordial and hospitality accorded to all of us. The government of the Republic of Namibia recognized the role that culture plays in the discourse of sustainable development. In Namibia, culture is mainstreamed into all development policies and frameworks. The National Development Plan number 5, under the social transmission pillar, calls for culture to register increased contribution of the sector to total national employment. Namibia just concluded National Education Conference 2022, further recognized arts and culture as levers and enablers of sustainable development. The concept is to include arts and culture alternatively an important sector in the development plan, which is Plan 6. Conversely, in late 2021, the Namibian National Assembly adopted the revised Arts, Culture, and Heritage Policy. The policy seeks to affirm and provide space to all Namibians while recognizing that special attention and support is needed to enhance cultural practices, art forms, and communities that were marginalized by the colonialism and apartheid. Furthermore, the policies seek to promote and support the development of Namibia's culture and creative industries. I'm equally humbled to inform the August conference this afternoon that the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance was deliberately upon in the National Assembly, and it was deferred to the relevant Parliamentary Standing Committee to scrutinize and consult, and before the decision to adopt and ratify. This remains a priority intervention for Namibia in order to give full meaning to the ideals of the AU Agenda 2063. The culture sector in Namibia was one of the most negatively impacted as a result of COVID-19. Although the government, through the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, instituted various relief mechanisms, the sector remains volatile and thus will require reforms in investment and policy interventions to stabilize the situation. In moving forward, particularly in contemplating post-COVID recovery, it is imperative that as African nations and all global nations develop policies that are inclusive with a focus on sharing humanity and promote peace. We are challenged to work together in telling and sharing and collective stories for the benefit of current, future generation, and generation yet to come. In conclusion, my delegation and I hopes that Mondiacult 2022 Forum will help nations to explore opportunity to improve investment in the culture sector, capacity building for heritage workers, improve culture statistics and information management systems, cultural infrastructures development, and digitalization in the wake of the fourth industrial revolution of culture and heritage resources, as well as creative industries. Finally, I want to thank everybody and wish to thank the August gathering here today for your kind attention, and I thank you. Muchas gracias.
Merci Madame la Ministre pour tous ces éclairages.
Thank you very much. I want to recording all the importance of culture and sustainable development within this holistic contest of liberty, live together and fight against discrimination, some social values, and something which constitutes that cementing this culture. Thank you very much, Madam, and thank you to all the ministers who spoke during this ministerial session. I would like firstly to remind you that obviously during this ministerial session there are two phases. The very first one regarding the ministers' interventions, then the second one to give the floor to the organizations and the different federations. I will start by Her Excellency Arsana Santaki, Special Reporter for the OHCHR. I give you the floor. C'est un grand plaisir.
Field of cultural rights. The impetus for this conference has been given as to give new impetus to the role of culture for sustainable development. This cannot be done without cultural rights. SDGs are political commitments that are based on the legal obligations that states have undertaken to respect and to protect. States, most of you here today, have signed and ratified Article 15 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, and Article 27 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These are very specific legal commitments that have to be mentioned and have to be realized. UNESCO has come up with fantastic documents in the last 2 decades. However, now we need implementation. We need implementation of these documents that is going to be adapted to today's realities and that will include human rights and especially cultural rights. We must be very careful. We must not lower the human rights standards. SDGs and declarations and political commitments cannot be used to dilute what already has been done. And we should not reinvent the wheel. We should implement the wheel. I heard a lot of excellent initiatives about specific targets by states, but not transversely. And I think that a goal specifically on culture will help with this. And I think that always mentioning cultural rights and the obligations deriving from cultural rights will help with this as well. Also, so far, we have discussed a lot about the meaning of culture. We have not discussed a lot about how cultures help us understand the various meanings of development. I am still concerned that many states use development in order to restrict cultural rights. We also heard a lot about access, but we need to discuss more participation. And places like this need to allow more interaction between the civil society and states. In essence, need to allow states to listen, to be inspired by the civil society, to allow the civil society to lead projects relating to cultural rights and sustainable development. And I've heard a lot about specific sectors of the population, but I would like in the declaration to hear about marginalized persons and groups, and also migrants. My forthcoming report to the United Nations General Assembly is indeed on sustainable development and cultural rights. It is going to be discussed with states further on the 20th of October. It shows my commitment to work closely with states to clarify further and implement cultural rights so that real sustainable development is realized. Thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you so much. Now I give the floor to Enrique Vargas, coordinator of the Ibero-American Cultural Space from CEGIP. You have the floor, sir.
Excelencias, muy buenas tardes a todos que nos están escuchando. A la UNESCO, gracias por
I thank the UNESCO for allowing me to participate. To keep on participating on the regional consultation of Latin America and the Caribbean. And we organized a forum towards Mondiacult called International Forum on Culture and Sustainable Development that produced a result with 33 recommendations. This document is in our website and has been taken to UNESCO. The mandate of the Ibero-American Summit, we are starting the implementation of the Ibero-American Strategy of Sustainable Development jointly with the Ibero-American countries, the 22 Ibero-American countries. The strategy is a tool for the alignment of the Ibero-American efforts of cultural policies to the SDGs. In our culture, we will discuss with the countries the reflection and interpretation of culture as a global public good, addressing the call of the UN. Today, the ministers, the 22 Ibero-American ministers that had the chance to meet, have ratified this and have expressed their commitment. Likewise, they have reaffirmed their commitment with the 13 Ibero-American cooperation programs. We will delve into actions in favor of cultural heritage against illegal trafficking, because international cooperation is indispensable to counteract these crimes. We also consider that we shall start an analysis and a study to give a new definition of heritage. Likewise, we also want to deepen our work with the territories and locally. So we started a new program of Ibero-American cooperation specialized in cultural training because this is a regional priority. We will keep on working in the impact study of COVID-19 in cultural and creative industries. In a new stage, we will work with the 11 countries missing. Next year, we invite you to the Ibero-American Congress of Culture that will be held in Portugal. We also announce the gradual implementation of the Ibero-American Fund of Reciprocal Guarantees for Culture, its industry, and its production. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Enrique Vargas. And now I give the floor to Ms. Jonathan Hernandez from IFLA. You have the floor. Sorry, not ma'am, sir. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, UNESCO and the Government of Mexico for this opportunity. I'm speaking on behalf of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA. Ministers of Culture, Excellencies, Honorable Delegates. It is important that we recognize culture not only as a pillar of sustainable development, but as a broad-reaching development accelerator. IFLA, therefore, joins the call in the draft declaration for culture to be integrated as a specific goal in the post-2030 development agenda. We echo our colleagues in the Culture 2030 Goal campaign in highlighting our draft goal to ensure cultural sustainability for the well-being of all. In order for culture to fulfill this potential, we must uphold a people-centered, rights-based approach with meaningful access and participation as core values, with the goal of leaving no one behind. This is close to our hearts as libraries champion access to information, enabling public participation, community building, and the acknowledgement of the cultural knowledge that each and every member of society can offer. This knowledge is not a passive nice to have. It is an active contributor to development which must be recognized in development policy. For example, the knowledge in our memory institutions can inform an ambitious vision to help people imagine and realize low-carbon, just, climate-resilient futures. As stated in the draft declaration, it can link education and culture to promote multilingualism and respect for cultural diversity. Together, we must reach beyond the culture sector in advocating for the recognition of culture's transversal impact on sustainable development. But we must also work to avoid silos within our sector. Libraries have much to offer, but around the world, their potential is in danger from national and human-caused disaster. I urge cultural ministers and all the stakeholders to support, nurture, and protect libraries and their collections alongside other forms of cultural property. I encourage you to consider UNESCO 2015 recommendation on the preservation of and access to documentary heritage, including, of course, in digital form. Alongside UNESCO cultural normative instrument and support its implementation. In summary, I encourage ministers and all the stakeholders to work with library authorities in your countries, including national library associations and institutions, as partners to create and implement strategies that build on Mondiacult's call to action and realize cultural roles in leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you so much. And now I invite our last speaker, Mr. Jordi Pascual, coordinator of UCLG, Culture Committee.
This is a message from United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG, the World Organization of Cities, born in 2004, although the roots of our municipalist movement are a century old and have local democracy and peace as founding and guiding principles. We have a strong, very strong focus on culture in sustainable development. Mind the preposition, not for sustainable development, in sustainable development. With Agenda 21 for Culture, we have provided to our members with a very complete frame, a cultural rights-based frame for cultural policies as central components of sustainable development strategies. Our work takes place in cities and local governments all over the world, in all continents, in all contexts. Our message to Mondiacult 2022 has 5 key points. I will summarize. 1. The consideration of culture as a pillar of sustainable development, on equal basis to the economic, the social, and the environmental pillars. The current triangular paradigm model does not work. It does not explain realities, and therefore it makes impossible for us to transform the world towards a real, sustainable place. Culture reconnects sustainable development. Culture humanizes sustainable development. Second, the climate emergency is a defining challenge of our times. It requires an ambitious and comprehensive treatment in cultural policy. As the Climate Heritage Network affirms, culture, including tangible and intangible heritage, creativity, indigenous peoples and local communities, languages, wisdom, and knowledge systems offer great potential to drive climate action. Third, subsidiarity. Cities and local governments are the most suitable scale to deliver cultural policies, especially programs that focus on fighting inequalities, promote active participation, protect linguistic diversity, guarantee gender equality, and co-create a future that belongs to all. Cultural policies can empower people, leave no one behind, leave no place behind. 4. Culture is a global public good. It needs to be treated by the international community as education or health. The world needs a global frame on cultural policies, ambitious, cultural rights-based, and respectful of the experience and capacities of cities and local governments. I conclude. 5, yes, we need a culture goal in the SDGs. The Global Cultural Civil Society, with the Culture 2030 Goal campaign, have just released a proposal with 1 goal and 10 targets. This proposal is informed, rigorous, exhaustive, generous, and feasible. We celebrate the wording of the draft final declaration of Mondiacult 2022 that refers to the need of a culture goal in the SDGs. This goal has to be a reality in 2030, if not before. The Summit for the Future in 2023, in which the SDGs frame will be evaluated and possibly updated, is a perfect landmark. The culture goal needs to be a reality as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
En guise de conclusion, d'abord, je voudrais beaucoup remercier l'assistance.
As a conclusion, I really want to thank the audience for being here, for your patience, because I know that it was a long day. It was not an easy day with a lot of debates, a lot of presentations. And I'd really like to thank my colleagues, ministers, and all the speakers here within the organizations and federations. And I'd like to conclude with 3 points, because as it is the last session of Mondiacult 2022, regarding the sessions and the political and ministerial sessions, I think that UNESCO and Mexico, in this tradition for the last 40 years, show us the perfect example of what can be a real commitment for culture and by culture to promote a vision for society, a vision of humanity throughout the world, as federative principles against the standardization, globalization, modelization, which give birth to particularism schemes, a patrimony more alive, and there is the being, there is the collective, all of the values incarnated by culture. Obviously, we are seeing a development, and we do not want only an economical development. We would like a value development, principles development, valorization, respect. And these principles are the ones who makes us alive. And I think that UNESCO and Mexico are both giving us an example, not only within this spirit of federative spirit, but I'm really proud to represent my country, Tunisia, and the UNESCO, which makes huge work to promote cultural diversity and other values throughout the civil society in all the organizations here, present here. I'd like to thank, it's not so obvious to be able to moderate, but I'm really thankful to the UNESCO for having chosen myself within all my colleague ministers. I would like you to write, I would like you to give your testimonies and to share all that you could live, your failures and your successes, because I know that from that we'll be able to correct the mistake that we made in the past, to be able to project ourselves in the future. I've just finished a book which is called Correspondence with André Malraux. It was taking the cultural references of the Fifth French Republic and what I could live as a ministry in Tunisia from 2016 to 2020. It's beyond the historical aspect, is to recall the relativity of the political exercise. We are also impregnated of those commitments, but the reality is very different. The reality is difficult. That's why I would like to again say and express my admiration, the respect of all the work made by the UNESCO through Audrey Azoulay, Madame Audrey Azoulay, and Paula Leonci, and all the people in the team in Mexico who received us so well. And I think you can follow the very same attention, infinite attention, so that culture can have a sense, a very meaning in our societies. Thank you very much.